Hello, everybody. Welcome to Research Masterclass on Sengupta Research Academy. I'm Dr. Sabyasachi Sengupta, and I'm the founder and director of Sengupta Research Academy. And the sole purpose of the academy is really to encourage you, to push you, to tell you how clinical research can be done in the best way or in the right or the best possible manner. And we are taking a lot of efforts towards this. Before we start into these specific topics that I had enlisted, I really want to tell you that these are some bad times for science, and that you would have seen a lot of people talking about the death of science as we know it now. And with all these detractions and with all these major journals causing a lot of hoopla and a lot of errors, it may it may sound to you that it's not the best time to be a scientist or to be into academics and publishing. But then let's look at these as isolated events, because these are not the rule. The second thing is that I think there is a lot of disconnect between people perceiving research techniques. That's because research techniques, people really think, or I think physicians like us, including me, used to think that this should be essentially be done by people in academics and who want to actually publish. But then now we know that a lot of these papers are not really the best, and they are I should not say this, but we may be getting sold a lot of international or foreign data. And because of that, we are consuming those papers, then we are consuming those products which are part of those papers, and then we are spending millions and millions on some of these instrumentation. So don't you think we should really be able to tell what is fake from what is real? I think it's important to, that's what I said. So it's important for us to understand that these research techniques are imperative for most clinicians to understand, because some of these papers, like I said, are I shouldn't say this, but they are getting sold to us, and we are using a lot of that data. So we either create our own data, or we learn to differentiate what is right from what is wrong, and then take that information and apply it to our patients, and then improve patient care. So let's get underway with what I was going to discuss. So the first one was about impacting more than one patient, right? So clinical research going beyond one patient. So let's remember that patients seeking healthcare, don't all of them don't come to us. That's because uh, you know a lot of patients go to many different doctors. Not all of them come to us, and hence we treat only, say, a minuscule of the actual disease that is there outside. But then if you are able to treat all of your patients very well, then you should expect that all others should also treat those patients very well. You may be doing something very different and hence getting much better results than others. So if you push it back and you push your protocols of treatment back to other physicians and tell them, okay, this is the best way of doing it, they may also start using that, and their outcomes may also improve, and hence all patients may start experiencing better outcomes. So that is basically what I mean by when you do research, you will impact more than one patient. So so some important points under these are that you can actually, like I said, influence practice patterns of other physicians. Then you can actually influence clinical decision and thought process. There was one paper which we had published in in the Journal of Ophthalmology, which talked about intraocular pressure reduction following phacoemulsification, which is a type of cataract operation. We have some non-ophthalmologists with us as well. We do phacoemulsification, which is a type of cataract operation, and it leads to drop in the intraocular pressure by about 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury after the operation. But this was attributed to the ultrasonic energy which was used during the surgery, and it was felt that ultrasonic energy is doing something to the trabecular meshwork, or the outflow facility of the eye, which was leading to drop in intraocular pressure. But then what we did at Arvind Eye Hospital in Pondicherry was we did a randomized control trial comparing phaco with manual small incision cataract surgery, which does not, of course, use any ultrasonic energy. And what we found is that there was an equal and reduction in intraocular pressure as well. So this intraocular pressure reduction by this study was clearly evident, but we did not find that it was attributable to the ultrasound energy. So so this paper clearly showed us that it is not the ultrasound energy which is impacting drop in intraocular pressure. And believe me, after this, a lot of the funding which was done by the NIH to researchers who are working on this concept has been withdrawn. So from 2017, none of the funds for NIH, like millions of dollars of funds which was going for this kind of research, has been actually stopped by the NIH. So that's the kind of impact that some of your papers can have on how literature is evolving. Then what you can do is, you can influence evolution of literature sometimes if you are publishing a lot of papers in a niche field. For example, we published a paper on toxic anterior segment syndrome from Arvind Eye Hospital in Pondicherry, and so we published long-term results of this, and we also talked about incidents. So we looked at about 60 or 70 eyes and followed them up for many months. I think it was about 8, 9 to 12 months. Now, this paper has been published in 2011 in the Journal of Cataract Refractive Surgery, and it was cited over and over again for many years. And then, I have actually reviewed about 20 to 23 papers on toxic anterior segment syndrome over the last decade or so. So so that's a small but still a meaningful impact on how literature on toxic anterior segment syndrome is evolving over a period of time. So that's another example of how your papers can influence literature. Then sometimes papers can influence policy and decision making by the government. For example, there was a paper published in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology in February 2017, which actually changed the definitions of blindness in India. So initially it was 6 by 16. Now it was brought down to 3 by 60. That is slightly lower vision, to match the WHO standards. Based on this, the Hindustan Times actually carried a headline which says the number of blind to come down by 4 million as India set to change blindness definitions. So when IAS officers are reading headlines like these, they're not really reading the paper, but they're reading headlines like this. What happens is that they think, oh, suddenly the number of blind in India have reduced, or the number of XYZ disease has actually reduced, and therefore we don't need that many funds. And therefore these papers will influence how government will allocate funds to the National Prevention and Control of Blindness program. So a lot of the papers can influence policy in that way. Then finally, what we really all want to aspire is to become good clinicians. So scientific deliberations during writing followed by a good review process makes you a better clinician. So a lot of questions will be asked to you by clinicians, by the reviewers, and you will reply to them. You will dig for these answers. You will read more. It all really makes you a better clinician. Your approach to patient care also improves. So I think there is a lot of positives in doing this kind of thing. So how you can impact one patient by doing or going beyond one patient. So these are some of the points that I thought I'll bring in front of you. And I think it's important to remember that we need to go home with questions, more questions than answers. If you've seen Professor Amod Gupta speak during the Research Live, one of the interviews on Research Live, he says, ask questions, ask more questions, because there are more questions than answers in this world. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And you never know which will be the right question. Then also learn from every patient, because they are your best teachers. And so I think all of your research can actually go beyond one patient and impact a lot of a lot of patient care just by going beyond one patient.